Hello, and thank you for joining Light Roast ASMR. I've been gone for a while, and the reason is, when I had created my channel, it was right before a big move. I switched jobs, and I moved out of state, so making that big of a move and moving my family took some time away. My priorities were elsewhere. And now that I'm settled in, I have time to start making some more videos. And out of the 4 I've made, it seems my Bible study has gotten the most views and the most reactions and comments. So I'm going to show you a little bit of what I've been teaching the teens in my church as of late. But I want to make a random advertisement right quick. I'm Light Roast ASMR, and I love coffee. But I'm not just a coffee lover. I'm also a tea lover. And of course, this is a tea that needs no introduction. Earl Grey. It is my favorite. I've tried everything. And I love the loose leaf tea. I love these tins that they come in. I think I might make a tapping video with this bad boy. I want to give a shout out to ASMR Vids, who is probably my favorite ASMR artist, I guess if that's the way you say it. He has a fairly recent video where he makes certain tapping sounds with glass and clay pottery, and at the end he ends it with like a milk jug, and I've watched that video so many times it has lulled me to sleep many times. And here you can hear the loose leaf. And here as I'm moving around. Ah, that's marvelous. That's good sounds. Okay. Well, let's move on to our study. We've been in John, and just recently, we were in John chapter 6. Jesus miraculously fed 5,000 people through a kid's Lunchable, basically. Crackers and sardines was pretty much the size of it. And you see probably one of the most miraculous events here in chapter 6. Jesus fed the 5,000. The disciples were there, and they helped disperse the food amongst all the people there. And at the end, when everybody's ate, and it says there was enough where everybody ate as much as they want, to where their stomachs were full. I'm in John, and there's this short portion right after that where Jesus walks on the sea. And what I'd like to point out is that John, Mark, and Matthew talk about this event, but they each give the same information, but each gives some different point of views. John says the least about this. what had happened was, and I'm going to make some notes for you guys as we go through this. John 6. I'm going right off memory, so bear with me. John 6, Mark 6, and Matthew 14. Let's see if you guys can see this. John says the least about this scenario, so let's see what happens. John 6, verse 15, it says, Therefore, when Jesus perceived they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, he departed again to the mountain by himself alone. Now, Jesus feeding the 5,000, it amazed the Jews so much. They were like, surely this is the prophet. He's a prophet. We need to make him king. But it's kind of a wrong attitude, a wrong way to go about things, to force someone to be king. Jesus indeed was their king, but they were missing the point of why he was there, why he had come to the earth. And it says here, so when Jesus realized that they were going to take him by force, he departed himself alone to the mountain. Verse 16. Now when evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into the boat, and went over the sea toward Capernaum. And it was already dark, and Jesus had not come to them. Then the sea arose, a great wind was blowing. So when they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and drawing near the boat, and they were afraid. But he said to them, It is I, do not be afraid. Then they willingly received him into the boat, and immediately the boat was at the land where they were going. So very simple. John just hits the facts. He's very simplistic about, well, not simplistic, but straight to the point and simple with his information. And Jesus goes to the mountain himself. John tells us, when the evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got in the boat, and went over in the sea toward Capernaum. And then when it was dark, it says Jesus had not come to them. And then it says there was a great wind in the sea. And they were going against it, and they were getting nowhere. Basically a storm. And it says they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles out. And then Jesus saw them, and he came walking on the water. They were afraid, let him in the boat, and that was it. John leaves out some really good stuff, though. But that was for a purpose. God had orchestrated John to write certain things, Mark to record certain things, and Matthew to record certain things. So let's ask ourselves some questions. The first question, just reading John, that pops in my head in verse 15 when it says, Jesus departed again to the mountain by himself alone. The question here I want to ask is, why did Jesus leave the disciples and go by himself to the mountain? Now it tells us here he was getting away from the people that were trying to force him to be king. But I feel there's another reason Jesus departed. Why did Jesus go to the mountain alone? So the first question, why did Jesus go to the mountain alone? The next question that pops in my head as I read through John here, let's get down to verse 16. Now when the evening came, his disciples went down to the sea. My question is, why did they go into the sea? Why did they get on a boat and go out into the Sea of Galilee, without Jesus? Is it really that random? Jesus leaves, goes away by himself, and the disciples just decide to start to go fishing or to go to the other side of the sea. So the next question, why did the disciples go to sea? Okay, let's keep going. It says they got into the boat and went over the sea toward Capernaum. It says it was already dark, and Jesus had not come to them. Then the sea arose, a great wind was blowing. So when they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea, drawing near the boat, and they were afraid. And then Jesus said, "It is I, do not be afraid." And so my next question that I ask when I read this is, why were they afraid? They see Jesus. Why would they be afraid of someone that they've come to love and to follow and to devote their life to? Why were the disciples afraid? Why were they afraid? Okay. Then it ends by saying, then they willingly received him into the boat, and immediately the boat was at the land where they were going. Okay, well, let's go over to Mark and see if Mark answers any of these questions. Okay, here's the feeding of the 5,000. And Jesus walks on the sea. Okay, Mark has 1 or 2 more verses than John did. Okay, so let's review our first question, and just read Mark's account and see if our question's answered. The first question we had was, why did Jesus go to the mountain alone? Except getting away from the crowds, what else did he go for? And Mark says, starting in verse 45, immediately he made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side to Bethesda, while he sent the multitude away. And when he had sent them away, he departed to the mountain to pray. Interesting. In verse 46, our question is answered. It said, Mark says that he actually dismissed the crowd. However he did that, but he got all 5,000 people, either told them go ahead and go home, get some rest, whatever it may be, but he sent them away, and our question is answered. He went to the mountain to pray. Okay? In verse 45, I don't know if you caught it, but our next question was answered there as well. Why did the disciples go out to the sea? John made it sound like they just left, but Mark tells us that immediately he made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side. Jesus actually commanded them to go out to sea, to travel to the other side. Is Jesus trying to teach them a lesson? What's Jesus' purpose? And our next question was, why were the disciples afraid? So let's keep reading. Verse 47. Now when evening came, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and he was alone in the land. Then he saw them straining at rowing, for the wind was against them. Interesting. Jesus is on the mountain to pray. But I don't think he's just up there to pray. It tells us here that Jesus is watching. It's kind of like the parent allowing the child to go out and do something by themselves, and they're kind of watching at the distance. Jesus purposely sent them out to sea, and then he, along with praying on the mountain, was at a view where he could see the disciples, and he was watching. And it says he saw them straining against the wind. And it says about the fourth watch of the night, he came to them, walking on the sea, and would have passed them by. Now look at verse 49. And when they saw him walking on the sea, they supposed it was a ghost, and cried out, for they all saw him and were troubled. But immediately he talked with them and said to them, Be of good cheer, it is I. Do not be afraid. Why were the disciples afraid? They thought Jesus was a ghost. Okay. Now, we have our three answers. Let's finish up here. Then he went into the boat to them, and the wind ceased, and they were greatly amazed in themselves beyond measure, and marveled, for they had not understood about the loaves, because their heart was troubled. Now I won't turn to Matthew, but guys, can you guess what Matthew adds to it? Matthew gives more information concerning this. John or Mark doesn't record the famous story of Peter stepping out into the water and walking on the water as well, but Matthew did. And even in that moment of great faith where Peter steps out and he trusts the Lord, he's able to walk on water because of his faith. But it says he looked around and he saw the waves, and he became afraid, and he began to doubt. And when he did, he began to sink. But at the last moment, Jesus called him a beautiful picture of life. When we're trusting God, trusting in his promises, which he's promised he would provide for us, that he would be there with us, and that everything that in our life that happens would work together for our good. Now that doesn't mean what we consider good. It doesn't mean that only good things are going to happen to us. But it means that even when there are hard circumstances, sickness, pain, even these things, that there's a purpose in it for those who are called and those who love God. But when we begin to doubt, when we look around and we see the waves around us and we begin to doubt and we start to fear, then we start to sink. But the picture is God doesn't let us drown. He'll always save us. Beautiful picture. Now, another thing I'd like to point out is that in Mark, it says they were greatly amazed when they brought Jesus aboard and the wind ceased. Now this wasn't the only time they had been in a storm at sea. The last time they were, Jesus was at the bottom of the boat sleeping. And they should have remembered that, hey, Jesus controls all of this. Matter of fact, he sent us out here. Is it possible he was trying to test us? And last time Jesus was with them, he commanded the winds to stop, and they did. Maybe that's why they were so eager to get him to board. Quick, get him on board. This will stop if we do. But at the end of Mark, it says they did not understand the loaves because their hearts were hardened. Let's paint the picture. They just saw a wonderful miracle of Jesus. He miraculously fed 5,000 people out of nothing. And then he purposely sends them out onto the sea. Now, the proper response would have been, the proper attitude would have been to contemplate what you had just seen. You know, while you're out there fishing and rowing, what's going through your mind? It's like, wow, look what Jesus has done. Look how he provides. All these other miracles we've seen Jesus do, his power is limitless. He provides beyond measure. It doesn't matter what circumstance we find ourselves in. God's power, Jesus' ability is so much greater than that. And you're contemplating that, and all of a sudden a storm comes up, and it's like they immediately forgot everything that they had just seen. And they begin to doubt immediately. And that's the whole picture. That's the point God's trying to get us to see along with the disciples, is faith should triumph all circumstances. That we should remember the things that God has done for us. And even in the past, what we see in Scripture, what God did. Why do we doubt? We believe these things. So why do we doubt? God has promised He would give us everything that we need. But we're human, and God knows that, which is why He sent Jesus to be the perfect human and to take our punishment from our sin and our mistakes upon Himself, to take that which was rightfully due to us, put it on Himself, so that we who are weak and mess up can always know that we have someone who loves us so much that they'll always forgive us, take us back, and make us a better person. And that's what it means to be saved. That's what it means to believe, and that's what it means to be a Christian. God is so good, and when I read His Word, I see a God who loves us, who indeed is angry at sin, who just like a good judge has to judge sin. But His love is so great, He doesn't want to condemn anybody. So He made a way. He didn't cheat. He made a fair way for us to miss out on our punishment and to live eternally with Him in everlasting life. Well, I hope you enjoyed this Bible study, and I hope it relaxed you. And I would ask that you would put in the comment section other videos you'd like to see. Any kind of tapping sounds or binaural sounds or any kind of other Bible studies or whatever it may be. Let me know what you'd like to see and I'll get it done. But anyway, again, thank you so much for your great comments, for watching, and I hope you all have a blessed night, day, evening, morning, whatever it is when you're watching this, and I hope to see you